Hello guys, how are you doing today? I want us to learn how to graph inequalities today. I want us to learn how to represent inequalities graphically. And I want us to get started. I want to start by introducing you to the kind of lines you'll be using for different inequality symbols. Let's get started. Graphical representation of inequalities. Graphical representation of inequalities. Take note. When graphing inequalities, when graphing inequalities, take note, these two symbols would call for a broken line. This is what we call a broken line. Whenever you have these two inequality symbols, you will be required to use a broken line to graph the inequality. And for these two symbols, a student will be required to use a continuous line. A student will be required to use a continuous line. So for these two symbols, you will be required to use a broken line, while for these other two symbols, a student will be required to use a continuous line. So the question should be, how do we graph inequalities? Let's look at this one here. Graph the inequalities below. Graph the inequalities below by shading the unwanted region. Graph the inequalities below by shading the unwanted region. Then you are given x is greater than 3, y is less than or equal to 4, x is greater than negative 2. I want us to take those three examples. Starting with the first one. We want to graph the inequality x is greater than 3. In order to graph this inequality, a student will be required to come up with the y-axis and the x-axis, what we call a Cartesian plane. Have it numbered in this manner. We have this one here. This is our y-axis, and this will become our x-axis. We want to graph the inequality x is greater than 3. We want to graph the inequality x is greater than 3. Before we graph this inequality, the first question we ought to be asking ourselves is, where is the line x is equals to 3? The line x is equals to 3 is a vertical line cutting the x-axis at 3. Do take note, this line should be broken because of the inequality symbol that we have been given there. The line should be a broken line crossing the x-axis at 3. So this is the line x is equals to 3. One common mistake that students do is to use an inequality symbol when labeling the line. That is a very big mistake. A line will always be equal to. A line cannot be less than. And a line cannot be described as greater than. A line should always be equal to. It is a region that should be described as either greater than or less than. For example, this line is the line x is equals to 3. The region on the right-hand side should be described as the region where x is greater than 3. The region on the right-hand side should be described as the region where x is greater than 3. So this is the region which satisfies our inequality. Because this is the region which satisfies the inequality, this region will therefore be called the unwanted region. Unwanted. Our question is instructing us to shade the unwanted region. So this is the region unwanted. Reason being, it does not satisfy our inequality. So for that reason, this region would be shaded. This region will then be shaded. That becomes the unwanted region. Which brings us now to the next example. Y is less than or equal to 4. We have got the inequality y is less than or equal to 4. How do we graph this inequality? We will again come up with the y-axis, have it numbered, have your y-axis numbered in that manner. Then what do? We will then ask ourselves, where is the line y is equals to 4? The line y is equals to 4 should be a horizontal line cutting the y-axis at the point 4. This is the line y is equals to 4. It should be a horizontal line cutting the y-axis at 4. Like I've already mentioned, it is a mistake, and a very big mistake, to label a line using an inequality symbol. A line can never be described as less than. This is very wrong. A line can never be labeled with an inequality symbol greater than. This is not allowed. A line should be equal to. Take very key note of that. So this line is the line y is equals to 4. What then are we going to do, or how do we shade the region unwanted? This is the line y is equals to 4. The region from the line going downwards should be described as the region where y is less than 4. The region from the line moving downwards is the region described as y is less than 4. But why? It's because it is in this region where we find numbers like 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, and so forth. So that becomes the region where y is less than 4. So in other words, this is now the region which satisfies our inequality. This is the region satisfying our inequality. So what do? The region on the upper side will then be shaded because it is unwanted. The region on the upper side of the line is described as the unwanted region. Which now takes us to the third one. In the third example, we have got the inequality x is greater than -2. X is greater than -2. We want to represent this inequality graphically. What do? We will again come up with our y-axis and the x-axis. We will come up with our y-axis and the x-axis in this manner: 0, -1, -2, -3, 1, 2, 3. This 1, 2, -1, -2. This is our x-axis. We will have, this is our y-axis. We want to graph the inequality x is greater than -2. But before we get there, we need to start by asking ourselves, where is the line x is equal to -2? The line x is equal to -2 is a vertical line crossing the x-axis at -2 in this manner. It is a vertical line crossing the x-axis at -2. What then are we going to do? Where is the region where x is on? Take note, when labeling this line should be labeled using an equal sign. It must be labeled using an equal sign. We will then ask ourselves, which is this region where x is greater than -2? It is the region from the line to the right hand side. This is the region where x is greater than -2. So therefore, this region becomes the region that satisfies our inequality. It is the region which satisfies our inequality. Therefore, this is called the unwanted region. That is how to graph inequalities carrying one variable. I want us to consider one example of an inequality carrying two variables x and y. We'll have this. We have got 2y minus x is greater than 4. What is the question asking? You are asked to graph that inequality. Then represent the solution on in a number, not in a number line, but graphically.